Now, here's Paul Metsa.
And I wish I could see stars over the prairie, stars over the prairie tonight. And I wish I could see.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Stars Over the Prairie. This is your host, Paul Metsa, with my wingman, Chris Allen. It's kind of a chilly day here in the Zenith City by the unsalted sea. But we always have a great 2 hours on Stars Over the Prairie. What do we do on this show? We talk to stars, people that used to be stars, people that want to be stars, people that don't care a lick about stars, but do like to go outside with a cold one at night and look at the stars. We got a great show today. We're going to be talking a lot about Tilt Town. We will be talking with Michelle from the Duluth Armory. They've got a big benefit coming up at Clyde Iron. In just a few weeks, we were going to have musician Todd Eckhart on. He called me at the last minute. We talked last night. I was going to pick him up. His car's in the shop, but Todd was under the weather, so he could not make it. But we're going to be talking to the woman in charge over there, Michelle, to hear more about the show. We're going to try to get Todd on next week. We will have the Mackey brothers that are opening up the event at Clyde Iron, the benefit for the Duluth Armory. A little later in this hour, we're going to be speaking to a man that's wearing two hats today. Nelson French was one of the prime movers in getting the Duluth Armory rehabbed and raising money to get that whole project started. So we'll be talking with Mr. French. Nelson also grew up in Hibbing, and we're going to be talking about the new Bob Dylan. Everybody calls it a biopic, Chris. I call it a biopic.
Yeah, I would go with the biopic too.
Yeah,
it sounds more like that'd be like a Bionic Man compared to the Bionic Man.
Exactly.
You know?
Good point. Good point. Because if it was going to be a biopic, there'd be a K at the end.
Right.
But that's a minor quibble. I've seen it twice. We're going to be talking about it, and in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about a great event that I'm honored to be a part of on January 24th down at the Cain's Ballroom, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. There's a great event, Chris, sponsored by the Bob Dylan Center. It is going to be the 50th anniversary to the week of the release of Bob Dylan's best-selling record, Blood on the Tracks.
Wow.
And it will feature such musicians as Adam from the War on Drugs, Elvis Costello. The MC will be Luke Wilson, Diana Krall, Amy from the Indigo Girls.
Wow.
And yours truly, Paul Metsa, who gets to follow Diana Krall. Am I a little worried about it? Yeah, I'm a little worried about it.
I'm a little jealous about it. Diana Krall.
Yeah. Well, her and Elvis are together.
I mean, granted, the Indigo Girls are no sloughs, but Diana Krall.
Yeah, so I'm working on. I've cut way back up my smoking. I'm doing my vocal exercises daily.
Vocal exercise. I would up my game a little bit.
I'm totally upping my game. No lip syncing at this thing, but I'm going to be joined. I'm so honored. I'm going to be joined by four of the remaining members of the Minneapolis musicians that played on Blood on the Tracks.
Wow.
One who we're going to be speaking to in the second hour, Mr. Kevin Odegaard, who played guitar on a song everybody's heard, whether you listen to the radio or you get into an elevator or go into a hotel lobby, Bob Dylan's Tangled Up in Blue. In fact, Mr. Odegaard donated that beautiful 1969 Martin D28 to the Bob Dylan Center. It's behind bulletproof glass down there. They are letting him take it out for just that performance.
Wow.
We have a special song that I'm going to take the lead on, but I will be joined by Mr. Odegaard, Billy Peterson on bass, Hibbing native Bill Berg on drums, and the great Greg Inhofer. Greg played on 5 of the songs on Blood on the Tracks, and we're going to be talking about more on that in the coming weeks. But before we get Michelle from the Duluth Armory on, we always like to talk about a special Capricorn. If you were born on January 4th, this is your outlook for the year. It's looking pretty good. You are highly ambitious and responsible, working hard at what you do, and rarely letting minor setbacks steer you from your course. Goal-oriented, your biggest weakness is a tendency to take on far too much. You are reliable, a fabulous partner, direct and honest, and immensely likable as well. You are a practical person who has much sound advice to give to those smart enough to ask you for it. So if you know somebody that was born on this day, ask them for advice.
Lately, when you've been doing these, a lot of them they're coming into money. So maybe you should start asking them for money.
Well, we do, you know.
Good fortune. The last few ones you've been reading every week has been like good fortune is coming your way in the next year, and
go halvies on them on a pull tab or a or some sort of
get
bet.
yourself a Mega Millions or something like that.
Go halvies on a Mega Millions. But interesting people born on this day, none other than Chris Allen, Sir Isaac Newton. True genius, English polymath, active as a mathematician, physician, astronomer, alchemist, theologian, and author. He was described in his time as a natural philosopher. Newton was a key figure in the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment that followed. He was born in 1643 in the UK. A few of these things, besides discovering gravity, he discovered the reflecting telescope, discovered calculus. Do you even know what calculus is, Chris?
I know that it's something I will never figure out. That's what I know.
And, discovered gravity. I mean, with the whole, the apple from the
apple
tree.
fell on his head, yeah.
Also, another really interesting person, Louis Braille, was the French inventor and educator who invented the Braille system of reading for the blind. He was born in 1809 in France. Didn't live to be that old. Died in 1852. 1911, a great jazz American singer and composer, Slim Gaillard, whose famous song, Flatfoot Floogie, and the Floor was born in Santa
Say that
Clark.
10 times fast.
Oh, I know. When I was writing it down, I'm going, I'm going to slow down when I read that. Born in 1911 in Santa Clara, Cuba. Lived to be 80 years old, died in 1991. I always like to mention my fellow Finlanders. 1925, Veikko Häkkilä was the cross-country skier. Born in 1925 in Kurkijoki, Finland. He won the Olympic gold in 52, 56, and 1960.
I thought she broke up the Beatles.
Yeah, that was Jouko Häkkilä.
Oh, no. That's right.
Jouko
Okay.
Häkkilä.
Yeah.
Oh, great football coach. I remember him when I started watching TV when he was coach of the Colts, Don Shula.
Oh, yeah.
He's in the Football Hall of Fame. Super Bowl in 72 and 73 with the Dolphins. NFL Coach of the Year, 64, 68, 67, and 1972.
And they still own the only unbeaten all the way through to the Super Bowl record. And supposedly they get together and they drink champagne when the next unbeaten falls.
That would be a party.
Yes.
He was born in 1930 in Grand River, Ohio. Were you old enough? Did you ever remember? I'm a little bit older than you, but Dad and I and my brother used to watch the Friday night fights.
Yeah.
From Madison Square Garden. So we were big fans of Floyd Patterson. He was the heavyweight champ from 1956 to 1959, and then again in 60 and 62, Olympic gold medalist in 1952. He was born in Waco, North Carolina. 1942, you know John McLaughlin, the great jazz rock fusion guitar player.
Yeah.
Of course, the leader of the Mahavishnu Orchestra. He was born in England, 1942, still with us. I saw him about 12 years ago at the Fitzgerald Theater in St. Paul. He was absolutely phenomenal. Now, you've done some country DJing in your time, Chris. Patty Loveless. Of course, her big song, Blue Side of Town.
Met her many, many times.
She was born in 1957 in Pikeville, Kentucky. Everything I've seen interviews with her. She seems like just a lovely human being.
There's a great video out there of when Vince Gill was singing "Go Rest High on the Mountain." You know, he wrote that for his brother.
Right.
And when he was singing it, he was actually singing it for someone else who had passed away. I want to say it was Charlie Daniels, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
And as he's singing it, he starts breaking up and he can't sing anymore. And he steps away from the mic, and Patti Loveless sings backup on that song. She was singing live with him, and she stepped up and started singing the song so that he didn't have to. It didn't go to a lull. She just continued right through so that you never knew. And you thought, you know, if you didn't know better,
You thought that's the way it was
that's the
arranged.
way it was supposed to be.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he steps up and starts singing again, and then she grabbed her mic and came over and sang with him and put her arm around him, and he made it through the rest of the song.
Wow.
It's on YouTube if anybody wants to watch it.
That is, you know, Vince is such an incredible guitar player.
Yeah.
There's a fella by the name of Russ Paul who's from southern Minnesota. Played with a band in Minneapolis for years called Becky Thompson and the Blue Sky Water Boys. Phenomenal pedal steel player. He moved down to Nashville in the early 80s.
Okay.
Started playing with a bunch of different musicians down there, and then did about 7 years in Vince Gill's band.
Wow.
And now he's the, his first gig was with Don Williams. Played with Don for about 6 or 7 years. And now he is like T-Bone Burnett's #1 call player. I was watching
What a guy to play with.
Oh, man, he's phenomenal. He, I bought a guitar. He makes Telecasters.
Okay.
When I sold my house, I said, I'm only going to buy one guitar, and I needed a Telecaster. I've been playing Telecasters for years. I'm a Telecaster guy, so I bought one from that's what he does in his spare time. He loves making Telecasters. So I bought a Russ Paul Telecaster, but I was watching a concert when Elton John and Leon Russell went on tour. And at the end, they were running the credits because they had a pedal steel player. The pedal steel player had this big gray beard, and they said, Russ Paul. I go, that's Russ Paul. I hadn't seen him since he grew that big gray beard, but just a phenomenal player. He comes up north every now and then. We'll have to get him in the studio and play. He's phenomenal, and a great guitar player, too, as well. Hey, and for you young rockers out there, well, not that young, Michael Stipe from R.E.M. was born on this day in 1960. And I couldn't tell you when he lost his religion, but his big song, Losing My Religion, of course, Everybody Hurts, and more with the band R.E.M. was born in Decca.
That was like late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I saw their first show, I believe, was 1983, R.E.M. at Navy Island in St. Paul.
Okay.
Just loved it. That first record, I believe it was Murmur. I just adored it. It was like the spiritual descendant of the Byrds.
Yeah.
Real jingly, jangly guitar sound that Peter Buck had.
From Minnesota. Peter Buck is from Minnesota.
Bill Berry, the drummer, is born in Hibbing. Yep. I don't think Buck is from Minnesota.
Then he did some time through here then.
Okay.
Because I think that was the connection of how they met. Peter Buck played in a band that Berry was in or something like that, but that was kind of how that whole thing transferred into
He spent a lot of time in the Replacements, Husker Du Circle, independent rock and roll in Minneapolis, which was on fire in the mid-'80s. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's another, besides Bob Dylan, who we're going to be talking about just a little bit, and his new biopic, A Complete Unknown, Roger Maris was born in Hibbing.
We should start a game. Have you ever heard of that game called 5 Degrees of Kevin Bacon?
No.
Where you try and connect yourself to Kevin Bacon?
Yes, I have. We should do 5 Degrees of Kevin McHale.
Of Minnesota.
Of Kevin McHale,
yeah.
who was born in Hibbing.
Yeah.
5 Degrees of Kevin McHale.
Just do 5 Degrees of Minnesota. I bet you we could match every musician up to Minnesota somewhere.
Pretty much. All the great ones.
Yeah. All the crappy ones would go to Louisiana, probably.
Oh, no, there's a lot of good musicians in Louisiana.
Well, but they all have ties to Minnesota, so we would find out who the better ones were.
And broadcast them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get Michelle from the Duluth Armory on the phone. Then we're going to be talking with today also Nelson French, who helped get the Duluth Armory started. And then in the second hour, we're going to be talking about the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. We've got a woman named Jenny who we're going to be speaking with, talking about that, the celebration commemorating that tragic day. November 10th, 1975. She's going to be in the second hour. And then we're going to be talking to my good friend who's down in Florida, Kevin Odegaard, who's going to be talking about his new music. We're going to talk a little bit about Blood on the Tracks. We're going to get more in depth on those sessions in the next couple of weeks before I meet my buddy Kevin down in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the 50th anniversary for the release of Blood on the Tracks. All right, we've got Michelle Miller on the phone. Michelle, I hope we didn't interrupt your jog around the lake today.
No. Thanks so much, and happy 2025, Paul.
Yes. My project 2025 is just to keep positive, play good music, and love all my friends and family, make new friends along the way. And you are one of the friends I met when I moved up to Duluth, when I did I forget exactly what my connection was with the Duluth Armory. I believe maybe it was not recently when we started the show last March 17th. But tell us what's going on here with the upcoming fundraiser at Clyde Ironworks, fundraiser for the Duluth Armory project.
Yes, it is our annual Buddy Holly tribute in honor of the Winter Dance Party of 1959. Buddy Holly, Big Bopper, Richie Valens, the whole Winter Dance Party crew were actually at the Duluth Armory and performed January 31st, 1959, and shortly after, that was when they passed away in the plane crash. So we've been doing, I believe this is our 14th annual in honor of that Buddy Holly was on the stage of the Armory. So Todd Eckert and his band are the headliners. Mackey Brothers are the warm-up band. We have a great local comedian, Danielle Throlo, will be our MC. We encourage people to dress in costumes of the era. There's a dance contest, and it's just a lot of fun.
Now, tell us a little bit about where you're at in terms of the rehab of the Duluth Armory, because I'm so, as I've said on the show before, my band, Damn Everything But the Circus, won the WEBC-sponsored Duluth Battle of the Bands at the Duluth Armory way back, God, 50 years ago. How old am I?
In 19 boom, right?
Yeah, 19 boom.
Right, exactly. That doesn't matter. You won a Battle of the Bands, so that's fabulous.
That's right. But we had a great time there. I was just there a couple of years ago, walking around, checking it out, and I walked up. I think it was with Nelson French that we're going to have just after we speak with you, Michelle. And it was really spooky in a way to walk up those back stairs to the stage, knowing that's where Buddy and the Big Bopper and Waylon Jennings walked up. I mean, and then over the years, all those other great musicians, and I mean, you could almost feel the history just walking up those stairs.
Yes, and standing on that stage and looking over the drill hall and just imagining shoulder to shoulder people dancing and enjoying the music and just filling that space. And I am just so honored that I get to hear so many wonderful stories. I'm sure there's probably some listeners who were actually at that Buddy Holly Winter Dance Party back in 1959. We've gotten people who have shared their photos from it and their stories. All different ages were there. Some people met their spouses there. There's just so much history and such a legacy that the Duluth Armory has served for the community, not only in music, but of course it was military and community events, and the architecture itself is a amazing building. And we just hit a huge landmark a couple weeks ago. We were issued the building permit from the city of Duluth, and so it's all official, and serious construction is due to begin in June of this year. So we have the main contractor all lined up, and we've been doing some preliminary work this winter already to get it all ready to go for the construction to start this summer. So it's very, very exciting to bring it back to life and get more local musicians on that stage.
Now, what is the length of the project? When do you think you're actually going to, it's all done and officially open the doors?
Yeah, Krause Anderson is our general contractor, and they are estimating it will be about an 18-month project.
That's not that long.
It's not, and it's a $58 million project in a 100,000-square-foot building.
Wow.
So we have to understand that, that's their timeline. So we're saying probably open and ready to go the fall of 2026. And that is perfect timing because that will actually be the 111th anniversary of when the Armory first opened in November of 1915. So that's perfect timing. I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Wow, that sounds like just the perfect date for it. When the Metsa family, my mom, dad, Elder, and Bess, used to take the four kids, Kathy, Jackie, John, and Paul, down every year to the Duluth Home and Boat Show at the Duluth Armory. And I remember just when you were looking back, you're a little younger than me, Michelle, actually quite a bit. Everybody's younger than me these days, but
not so much.
But do you, when you were running through your list of performers, who I want you to mention after I ask you this question, but there was a great Italian accordion player named Dick Contino from the East Coast, who actually played several times on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I remember seeing him. He used to stroll through all the boats and all the boats and motors and other things that they were showing for the upcoming spring and summer season. And just a handsome guy, looked like Elvis Presley, and the women loved him. And he was a phenomenal accordion player. But when I was doing some reading, I do 80% of the books I read are all music related. I was reading an interview with Roy Batan, the longtime keyboard player for Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. And when he was mentioning early influence, he said, yeah, there was this accordion player named Dick Contino. I also saw, now Chris Allen might remember this guy, George Goebel.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the comedian, guitar player, musician.
Yeah.
Gibson guy. He played Gibson guitars. That was his thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I think they had the George Goebel model. I was up in Fargo, North Dakota years ago doing a gig, and I love going to used bookstores and vintage stores. And I was looking through this book, and sure enough, there popped out a black and white glossy signed by George Goebel.
Wow.
It's one of my prized possessions. But Michelle Miller, tell us about some of the other musicians over the years that have played that great stage.
Right. Well, Johnny Cash played in 1957, and it's a well-known story that Bob Dylan came to the Winter Dance Party in '59 and connected eyes with Buddy Holly, and that's the story goes that he was inspired to, follow his musical dream. But actually, Bob Dylan hitchhiked down from Hibbing to see Johnny Cash in 1957. And they became fast friends, and Bob Dylan was actually Johnny Cash's first guest when Johnny Cash had his variety show on TV.
And you know why? And you know why you know that, Michelle?
I believe you told me that.
Yeah, but you also do a radio show up at Two Harbors, and so we've got here's the beautiful celestial connection here.
Yes,
I interviewed
Other noteworthy, Patsy Cline, she actually performed on New Year's Eve in 1962 or 65. I believe it was from 65 to 66 because it was New Year's Eve. And this is so funny, Paul, that the tickets were dubbed $1.50, but you get a savings that last hour of the show because it was the next day was free.
That's crazy.
Isn't that funny? It's on a newspaper ad that we have in our archives. Isn't that funny?
Oh, that's phenomenal. Well, the reason why we know how Bob heard Johnny Cash, I interviewed a guy. I've got a radio show for 10 years that still goes on in Minneapolis Saturdays at 6 p.m. on AM 950 called the Wall and Power Radio Hour. And tonight I'm actually doing a great rerun of a remembrance of the great Mojo Nixon at 6 o'clock. Just go to am950radio.com to hear that at 6 p.m. But I was interviewing Johnny Western. He was a country western singer. He was born in Two Harbors, raised in Brimson at a CC camp. And when he was a young boy, they used to bring in screens to show movies. And they used to bring in Gene Autry movies into the CC camp. And young Johnny said, that's what I want to do. I want to become a singing cowboy. Well, his family moved down to Northfield. His dad was a athletics instructor. And Johnny, when he was about 14 or 15, got a little gig on the radio. He'd play every now and then on Saturday mornings. Also played before they did the cowboy movies after school. Ended up in New York, ended up going out to Hollywood, met Gene Autry, got a job as one of the cowboys in a posse. One thing leads to another. And Johnny Western, for those of you that are old enough to remember, Chris, maybe you do the second most popular cowboy TV show after Gunsmoke was Have Gun Will Travel.
Yeah.
And Paladin, who was the gunslinger, Johnny Western from Two Harbors in Brimson wrote and sang the theme, The Ballad of Paladin. So when I had him on my radio show, introduced by our good mutual friend Sherwin Linton, he told me the story that Johnny Cash told Johnny Western. He goes, yeah, when Bob moved down and finally met Johnny Cash in Nashville, he told Johnny, he said, yeah, because I hitchhiked down from Hibbing to see you at the Duluth Army. He goes, not only did I hear you, Johnny, he goes, I breathed you. So that Duluth Army had things going on. And then, of course, when I, moved up to Duluth 3.5 years ago and rented the first floor of Bob Dylan's childhood home, I was walking down the alley one day, and there was this guy, kind of a hippie-looking guy named Moon. He had a ponytail and a tie-dye T-shirt. I didn't know if he was just mowing lawns or what. And so I said, hey, I'm Paul. I was walking my dog, Blue. I said, I just moved into Bob Dylan's house. He said, well, I live in a very famous house, too. And I said, how's that? He goes, Albert Wolson. The longest living survivor of the Civil War, lived there for 40 or 50 years. Now tell us about Albert Wolson, Michelle, because he had his funeral at the Duluth Armory in, what was it, 56 or 57?
56, yep. It was a national event. There were people from all over. He was the last living Civil War veteran. And so his memorial service was there. It was covered by Time magazine. And then the procession from the armory up to the cemetery where he's buried. And, an interesting thing about Albert Wilson is that he was a drummer boy in the Civil War. And so it's just kind of full circle that he comes back to the armory that is known for its legacy of musicians. And now we have a music resource center that is an music education program for students. And so we're passing that on to the next generation.
You know what? I never thought about that. Alive. I never thought, Michelle, about that, the connection, because Private Wilson, when he got in, was only 14 years old when he joined the Union Army. He also fought at the Battle of Gettysburg, and I believe there's a commemorative plaque or a small statue for Albert Wilson down at Gettysburg. There's one, I know there's a little statue in City Hall. But
in Duluth City Hall,
And then, that the story goes that when he would be sitting in his backyard or on his front porch, when the students from Nettleton School, where Bob went to kindergarten, Bob Dylan, they'd go by and salute him, and he'd salute them back. And Bob became a real big fascinated by the Civil War. And stories when he went out to New York City in 1961, he'd spend time at the New York Public Library reading the microfiche of the old newspapers from that era. In fact, I recommend anybody that is either into Bob Dylan or into the Civil War. He wrote a great song called Across the Green Mountain that was in the movie Gods and Generals that's on YouTube. Did a really cool video for it where he and the band are riding horses dressed as Civil War soldiers. And but it's one of my top 10 favorite Dylan songs, Across the Green Mountain. But that's an interesting connection, Michelle. With Wilson as the drummer, and this is part of the arts.
And we're continuing that legacy. There's so many stories, Paul. Oh my goodness. I mean, and I know listeners probably have some great stories too, and I would love to hear them. So come to the Buddy Holly tribute on January 26th at Clyde Iron. Doors open at 5:15 for general admission. And seek me out. I'll be running around getting things taken care of, and I would love to hear listeners' story about their military connection, their music connection. I love meeting people and hearing the stories.
The thing that I like about this whole story is not only does it have a huge history, but now with a lot of musicians coming back playing acoustic and everything, we're getting back to the roots of music. And just think of some of the history that the Armory is going to start again.
Yeah, right.
That is perfectly said. Yes, and that's our whole point, is to bring it back to life and be a showcase for local musicians. And if you've never been in the building, it is pretty awesome. Like you said, Paul, when you stand on that stage. So we're going to restore that beautiful stage and bring the community back into the building so it can be alive with arts and music.
Well, I want to say before we get to Nelson French here in a little bit, that when I went to the concert you had this summer with my good friend Tony Andreessen, and from the Trashmen, and Bill from the Electras, and more. The acoustics were phenomenal in there. I was knocked out how good the acoustics were. So by the time you actually get a real sound system fit for the place, I can't wait. And Clyde Iron, of course, we've got to talk about the history of Clyde Iron at some point, because that's right in my neighborhood. But that's got its own set of history. But Chris Allen, write down, make a note. But we got to do an hour or two on just people that were at the Buddy Holly show or other events over the years.
Let's put it out there now. If you are listening and you have been a part of any historic event, or you know someone, please send them our way, and they can get a hold of you by email, Paul.
Yeah, just at paul@paulmetsa.com. Hey, Michelle, what do you say we give away a couple of tickets to our third caller today? Could you spare a couple for the event?
I would love to do that. And for other listeners who don't win tickets, just go to DuluthArmory.org, and you can order them right there. Or when I'm back in the office on Monday, you can give me a call, and I will hook you up with tickets for sure.
Great. So we'll take our third caller, gets a pair of tickets. What's the number here, Chris Allen?
I knew you'd ask me that.
We'll do it after this. We'll listen to Todd Eckert doing a Buddy Holly song. Thanks, Michelle. We'll have Nelson French on here in just a bit.
722-0830. 722-0830. That's the phone number to call.
With a 218 prefix.
722-218, is the prefix. 218-722-0830.
Great. Here's Todd Eckert doing a little Buddy Holly.
All right. Our lifetime love will be all right. Alright, so I'm going steady. Well, alright when the people say that these foolish kids can't be ready for the love that comes their way. Well, alright, we'll live and love with all our might. Well, alright, our lifetime love will be alright.
All right, that was Todd Eckert, who's playing at the big Duluth Armory fundraiser on the 26th at Clyde Iron. We're going to hear from our sponsors and be back with Mr. Nelson French.
I'm Sydney, and I had Z LASIK at Weiss Eye Center. Oh, man, camping and like being able to look up at the stars or like wake up to the stars or wake up to the sun and not have to kind of fumble around to see where my glasses are. So I'm looking forward to that eventually. It's like getting out and enjoying nature with sort of no barrier. Oh, the staff were really great. Yeah, it was really, always felt pretty taken care of and very friendly staff, and they were answering my questions even if they were like really, really trivial. It's something that you gotta have like sort of a bit of trust in this doctor.
Weiss Eye Center is the only clinic to offer blade-free Z LASIK in the Northland. To find out more and to arrange your free consultation, call 218-625-1917 today or visit weisseyecenter.com for more information. Weiss Eye Center. See the best.
If you're looking for a great hang in downtown Duluth, I highly suggest Carmody's Irish Pub. They're located at 308 East Superior Street, open Tuesday through Sunday. The host and hostess are Eddie and Liz. Eddie is a retired Chicago cop. If he happens to be in the club when you're there, talk to him. He's got more stories than I do. They've also got a great jam session every Tuesday night from 8 to 11 with Bruce Woodman. So if you're a musician, tried and true, that has been out there playing and just want to go try out some new stuff, go down and hang out with Bruce and the crew. Or if you're just up and coming, bring your horn or your stringed instrument or just want to sing. Go sit in with Bruce Woodman every Tuesday night at Carmody's Pub, 308 East Superior Street.
River City Records and Books, voted Best Record Store of 2023 in the Twin Ports by the Duluth Reader, has in stock thousands of new and used vinyl records, from classic rock to punk, grunge and metal, to hip-hop, rap, and jazz, reggae, and dub. Thousands of books, CDs, DVDs, Blu-ray, and VHS. Also a large selection of cassettes, comic books, and music magazines. Stop in and see them at 1814 West Superior Street in the friendly Lincoln Park Craft District. Open 9 to 7, 7 days a week.
All right, folks, let's get started. Parents, thanks for coming. As many of you know, I'm Coach Mather. Tonight I want to talk about the season, of which I only have one expectation, that everybody gets stronger. When I say get stronger, I'm not referring solely to physical strength. Sure, we'll be in the weight room, we'll be running stairs, but we're also going to focus on developing mental toughness and grit, because those are the characteristics that allow us to achieve greatness both on and off the court. So, how do we develop those things? By getting comfortable with a challenge, by cultivating the confidence necessary to overcome adversity in all forms. That's why I coach. That's my purpose. Every member of this team can lean on me, and I'll teach them how they can lean on themselves and each other.
This message presented by the MSHSL and the Minnesota Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Hey, yo, how's she going? Don't you know, this is Steve Solkola, and you're listening to Stars Over the Prairie with Paul Metsa, 610 AM, 103.9 FM on KDAL.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paul Metsa. You're listening to Stars Over the Prairie. And before we forget, if you're driving up north, from wherever you're driving from and you pass through my hometown of Virginia, Minnesota, stop in at Flamer's Bar on 2nd Avenue and Chestnut Street, which is the main drag. You want pull tabs, you want a good beer, you want a nice, well-priced drink, and some good company, stop at a Flamer's Bar, the best bar on the Iron Range in my hometown, 2nd Avenue and Chestnut Street. You can't miss it. All right. I think we're going to be speaking with my good buddy Nelson French, who's been a frequent guest on Stars Over the Prairie.
Good morning, Paul. How you doing?
Good morning, Nelson. How are you this morning?
Hey, I'm great. I'm just sitting here at the Boulders Bar in Silver Bay and looking forward to chatting with you a little bit here.
How is I watch you on Facebook. Does that bear still show up every now and then and run around up there?
Well, they're kind of tucked away for the winter, I think.
Suppose, yeah. Well, good.
But, I spent about 20 minutes communing with a black bear about 10 feet away from him, and we had a great time.
Well, good. Well, we just talked to Michelle about her work at the Armory, and you started working on the Armory how long ago?
Well, I actually got on the board probably 13 years ago. I served for 12 years on the board, and, the group's been around for about 20 years, and it's so exciting to see that project coming to fruition. We worked hard to get a state appropriation, I think about $4.5 million, and it's an exciting project. And, boy, when it opens in the fall of 2026, I'm sure hoping we get a grand master to help us celebrate that opening. You know what I mean?
Well, best of luck. I do know what you mean. And, I love the sauna down at the YMCA, and I get there several times a week, and I bump into a guy named Tom down there. And
yep.
What was Tom's last name?
Tom Hollandhurst. Are you there, Paul?
Yeah. No, I can't. Yeah. I'm not hearing very much on my headphones. Maybe Chris could turn me up a little bit. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So
Tom was a founding board member, I believe, of the Armory Arts Music Center. So it's just an exciting time to see that project come together. And I'm still peripherally involved and may jump in and get more actively involved before the grand opening. So,
well, you're busy keeping music rocking and rolling up there in Silver Bay, Music in the Park, and
we got this great. We're entering our 5th season this year, and we're already looking at an exciting lineup. We can talk a little bit more about that. Well, Charlie Parr is going to open on July 18th. I'll toss that out. And we've got an exciting lineup. Stay tuned for the dates, but I think Chase and the Ovation will be up here. I'm thinking Tina and the B-side may be up here. We're looking at New Primitives, and we've got Scarlett Rivera coming back with her good friend and your good friend, Chris Mulkey.
All right. Well, and let's not forget, I've heard there's a rumor that Cats Under the Stars, one of the greatest Iron Range bands, are celebrating their 50th anniversary next year. You might want to look in and get those guys.
That's in 2025. Is that this year now?
They did their first. They did their first gig as Cats on the Stars, August 17th, 1975, at the Northside Park in Virginia, Minnesota.
All right, we'll keep in touch, my friend. That'll be interesting. Yes.
Well, speaking, one of the reasons why we're talking to Mr. French today is he's a Hibbing native, and he, like me, has seen the new Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown. Nelson, what were your thoughts and feelings after seeing the movie?
Well, it was. It brought me and I think many others to tears sitting at the Mann's Cinema, which is sort of the successor of the old State and Libba theaters in Hibbing, and watching this film about this guy who was born in Duluth and raised in Hibbing and went on to great things. And of course, the movie doesn't cover the early Hibbing years where he was really a rock and roll guy before becoming a folk guy, as you well know.
Yeah.
But it covers the 61 to 65 years in great detail and as much as you can pack into two hours or so of film. It was very heartwarming to see Timothy Chalamet just become Bob, become the young Dylan. I just am so amazed at what he and the other folks were able to do who played the characters and then actually performed and sang the music themselves. It is so amazing and over the top. And there is now a Complete Unknown soundtrack, which is a soundtrack from the film. But even more importantly, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, there's a complete unknown, a listening companion from the Smithsonian Folkways.
Really?
Folks. Yeah. So folks, go to your Apple Music or wherever, a complete unknown, a listening companion from Smithsonian Folkways. That'll knock your socks off.
I was part of the event up in Hibbing on December 20th, saw it also as well at the Mann Theater. And what was significant about that for me was, I was talking to someone. I said, that's kind of where the slingshot started to be pulled back. That kind of really shot, Bob in outer space and around the world. I was describing to someone, I was talking to NPR, I said it was kind of like, John Glenn with a guitar. So it was fun to see it right there in Hibbing. Now, what year did you graduate from Hibbing High School?
I graduated in 1970, so I'm about 11 years Bob's junior. And Susan Oxman, my good friend, who was a neighbor of mine, was there as well. And so what Susan, Bob, and I have in common is we were all born in Duluth and raised in Hibbing, which is a little-known fact. But it was wonderful to be with Susan and other Hibbing friends. The energy at Mike's Pub and at the grand opening in Hibbing were so positive. There's always this talk about, Bob doesn't like Minnesota, Hibbing doesn't like Bob, whatever. It was that was gone. There was really respect on many levels for what Bob accomplished, where he came from, and where he's gone. So it was just a wonderful experience, and it was wonderful to have you and Jean LaFond and Amy Grillo performing for us that night. That was very, very heartwarming to see. Music was still part of the celebration.
I think that's really. I think part of it. With the Hibbing turning its back on Bob because they thought Bob turned his back on Hibbing, I think that was more of a generational thing, and I think Bob was kind of by the time he got out to New York City, he was talking about he grew up in the carnivals, traveling the country, riding the rails, which was just part of Bob Dylan's great myth making. But the part in the movie that I loved, and I bet you would agree with me, Nelson French, on this one. There's a scene in the movie, and it's not really giving it away. You've got to really see it to believe it because it's a visual thing. But when Bob gets the notebook at the apartment, I don't know if it's his apartment or Sylvie's apartment or Joan's apartment, and addressed to Bob Zimmerman, and they open it up, and there's a scrapbook of Hibbing.
Yeah, the scrapbook of Hibbing is much like the display they have at the Bob Dylan Center, showing that postcard of Hibbing. That was a tear-jerking moment. I mean and as you recall from being there at the theater, a round of applause.
Oh my God, huge! Yeah, oh yeah, hoots and hollering. You know what was interesting about that for me personally, Nelson? I had interviewed Terry Thal, who wrote a great book called My Greenwich Village, Dave, Bob, and Me. She was married to Dave Van Ronk, where Bob stole his arrangement of House of the Rising Sun that he put on his first record and was Bob's first manager and actually taped him on a reel-to-reel at the Gaslight Cafe in 1961. I had met her when I played the 60th anniversary of Gertie's Folk City out in 2019 in New York City, and we remained friends. But I was asking her during my interview, we played a little bit of it 2 weeks ago here on Stars Over the Prairie. I said, I always like to, when I go to a city, see where, interesting people lived or interesting events took place. So I said, where did you live? And she said, 190 Waverly Place. And they lived in 2 apartments, but our first apartment, she said, was 3F, right? So, and I don't think it had any literal connection to the movie, but that scene that we're talking about, when the postgate man knocks on the door to bring that package to Bob Zimmerman, on the door it said 3F. And I thought that was a beautiful cosmic take, what you have gathered from Coincidence moment for me anyway.
Yeah, no details left behind. And, of course, we know Jeff Rosen and Bob were both involved in overseeing and participating in the development of this movie, and it shows. It really shows. I think that, Hibbing proud is how I would describe the feeling that night, and proud of their son who's gone on to actually do wonderful things all around the planet. So
I remember I was talking to a guy in the sauna once again a few weeks ago, and a younger guy, he maybe mid-30s. He was going, oh, Dylan doesn't like Duluth. He doesn't like Hibbing. He doesn't like Metsa. I said, no, you are so wrong. I said he's got a lot of love for the state and where he came from. And I remember when, and I know you were at the show in '99 when Dylan played with Paul Simon at Bayfront Park. I remember there was a great article in the Duluth News Tribune, and they were asking old-timers from Hibbing if they'd ever seen Dylan up there. And so one of these guys said, he goes, well, I can't really say I've seen Dylan, but last summer we saw a long black stretch limo come through town with a canoe on top.
You mentioned that '99 show, Paul. That reminds me, do you remember that Larry was still with us at that point, and we held court at the Blackwoods Grill?
I've got pictures of it. The great Larry
Keegan.
You have
pictures of that? Oh, man, I'd love to see them.
I have a picture.
Have a good camera at the time.
My nephew Jason was there.
That time with Larry Keegan was just very special. And that's the first time I met Bill Pagel in person was that evening.
I had a
good memories.
Just had a nice chat with Bill last night.
Yeah, and we have good memories of lots of things, including the fact when the Blood on the Tracks gang played at the Hibbing High School auditorium as part of my brothers and my efforts to bring music to the Hibbing High School stage, and we had Kevin and his band there, and you referenced earlier in the show this 50th anniversary celebration that's coming up, which is going to be fantastic.
And you're going down, correct?
I'm going down, and I believe I have a front row seat all weekend. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Beautiful, Nelson. Say hi to Marilyn. Thanks for your time today. Have a beautiful weekend, and we'll.
Let me.
Well, we've got to run. We've got to run, Nels. Thanks.
Okay, Michelle's doing support the Army Project, folks. Do that.
All right. Thank you very much. You listen to Stars Over the Prairie. We'll be back with Kevin Odegaard and talk about the 50th anniversary of the Edmund Fitzgerald in the second hour of the show.
And I wish I could see stars over the prairie, stars over the prairie tonight.
Here's Paul Metsa.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You listen to Stars Over the Prairie on a chilly Duluth morning. We're broadcasting here from Tiltown, the Zenith City by the Unsalted Sea. We are a stone's throw away from Bob Dylan's way, 237 somersaults down the hill from Bob Dylan's childhood home, and not about 235 somersaults down from where St. Mary's Hospital was, where the young Dylan was born May 24th, 1941. We have a great musician on today who's enjoying warmer climes down in Florida. He's got, not only was he the guitar player on Tangled Up in Blue on Blood on the Tracks that we're going to be talking about later on in this interview, but he's been a great musician-songwriter his entire life, originally from Princeton, Minnesota, and he has given us some of his songs he's working on now and other songs that the KO Band, short for the Kevin Odegaard Band, has played. And so we've got, are we going to listen to a little Kevin Odegaard?
I'm just putting it in the background right now.
Oh, yeah, here we go. We got a little KO Band here.
No, this is...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll put that, let's do that a little later, Chris. Yeah, that was, of course, Bobby D. But we got Kevin O on. Kevin Odegaard, how are you this morning?
I'm pretty good. We went to the casino last night.
Did you win?
And we won big. We saw the Jim Gaffigan show.
Oh, how was it?
Not as funny as he is on TV.
It's okay. Well, he won't be doing Tim Walz anymore on SNL.
No.
Now, where is what casino? There's more than one casino down there. What's your?
This is a guitar hotel. It's shaped like a guitar. It's the Hard Rock, I don't know who owns it, but it's an incredible complex, and we couldn't get out of there fast enough this morning. Had to break it down. Rooster crowed at the break.
Oh yeah,
we
those
were gone.
Those casinos scare the hell out of me. Although now, do they still let folks smoke down there in the casino?
Yes.
Wow.
We you can smoke all throughout the complex, but to get anywhere, you have to go through about a quarter mile worth of slot machines and blackjack tables and various other games I've never heard of.
Right.
We were tempted. We were sorely tempted, but we didn't dive in.
Well, it's those casinos, they scare the hell out of me. Truthfully, I work too hard for the little money I make to go and waste it on a slot machine. Although I have a buddy, Kelly Hotchkiss, who lives down in Newport Richey, Florida, a little north of you, Kevin, and that guy is just—he's magic. He goes in a casino, spend $100, $200, walks out with $3,000 or $4,000. I mean, since I've known him over the last 5 years, he's won over 15 or 16, 17 grand on just the casinos. Black Bear, Fortune Bay up on Lake Vermilion. He's just one of those guys.
My grandma was that way, but much smaller numbers. She was the nickel and the dime machines, and she would always walk out of there with $50, $60.
Good for her. Did she ever buy her grandson?
She bought us stuff all the time, so I'm sure that money went right to us.
Kevin Odegaard, I met you in around the early 1990s. I cold called you out in New York, and you were, I believe, were you the national director for the National Association of Songwriters?
Yeah, that was L.A.
Right.
Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah, not New York. Yeah, Los Angeles. And
corner of Hollywood Boulevard, right by the Capitol Tower there.
Yeah, right around the corner from the Pantages Theater.
That is correct.
Yeah, I just saw Dylan there a couple of years ago, and then had my first martini at Musso and Frank's. I bet you had a couple of business lunches there.
Yeah, they had a great Russian salad. It was the only thing I ever ate there. Gigantic, colossal shrimp and Russian dressing, and it's called something. I forgot what.
That sounds phenomenal. Now,
They have a name for it.
Now, you've been playing music your whole life.
Right.
Since so tell people out there on my Stars Over the Prairie radio audience, where did Kevin Odegaard pick up that first guitar? Were you like the rest of us with the Beatles, or did you predate that?
It was a ukulele at Camp Oshawa. My mom enrolled me. My mom, who was a retired concert pianist, well, she never really got into the business. She was trained and ready to play, but a handsome young lieutenant came along on a tour of William and Mary College and stole her away. And she wound up in Princeton, Minnesota. So I went to Wyoming, Minnesota, Linwood Lake, Camp Oshawa, where I first heard Bob Dylan, where I met on the very same day of the Newport Folk Festival where Bob went electric. That morning I had a contraband transistor radio, and I heard Like a Rolling Stone for the very first time. July 25, 1965, and that lit me on fire. Yes, the Beatles were a year earlier, and seeing them on Ed Sullivan turned me into a fan. But once I heard Bob's poetry coming out of the radio, 6 minutes worth on KDWB radio out of St. Paul, that was the end for me. It was all over. And then walks into my tent Bobby Rivkin, whose older brother is my hero, my local. He was the Beatles to me. He played in the Chancellors.
Okay, Dave
and
Rivkin.
So
now known as David Z.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I figured out who Bobby was. I said, "Is your brother?" And he said, "Yes, my brother is David Rivkin." Because David Rivkin, I mean, the Minneapolis bands were famous in those days. Ask Tony Andreessen, the Surfing Bird.
Sure, Trashman.
Liar, Liar. Some big hits out of Nicollet Avenue, that studio, which was once called K Bank.
Right.
All right, I'm covering too much ground. Ask another question.
No. I'm all for it. So, when did KO get together and start playing with other musicians? And you're serenading mom and dad on the ukulele. But when did you put the first band together?
First band I put together, I came home from New York City. I hitchhiked to New York City with my girlfriend, Nancy Bunt, and I came home with a recording contract in my pocket in 1971. So I called up Stanley Kipper, my lifelong friend, and we put a band together and made a first album called Wolf, produced by David Zimmerman. And yeah, it's on iTunes. It's everywhere. It's on all online stores, and it still remains. And I'm not bragging here, but it's the most played, most streamed album of my career. I made it 5 minutes into my career.
Wow!
So I've never really lived up to it, except now a couple of years later. David called me again. He said, I'm looking for a guitar, and I need to put a band together. And I said, what for? And he said, well, let's talk about the guitar first. And I said, okay, well, what do you need? He said, I need let's call it a 0042 gut string Martin in the 30s, something with 1930s vintage, somewhere in there. And what do you need a band for, David? And he said, well, I'll tell you that when you call me back with information. Go looking for that guitar. And I did. We hung up. I watched the rest of Kojak, and I called my friend Chris Weber downstairs in Dinkytown. I lived up in a high-rise 23 floors over the rail yards where I worked as a brakeman at that point. The first band had not worked out terribly well. I'd been driving cabs and riding the rails since that point, and David's call was welcome. So Chris quizzed me. He said, Kevin, have you been in my store? I said, no, I haven't, not lately. He said, I don't believe you. Because that guitar that you're asking me about is right behind me on the wall.
Wow.
And I said, you don't say. Well, that's great. Can I rent it or borrow it? He said, well, it's not mine. It's on consignment. What do you need it for? And I said, well, I can't tell you that. He said, well, I got to make another call, and then maybe I'll be able to tell you. So I had to call David and get the green light because you get once you get involved in a project with that group, you're sworn to secrecy.
Right.
So David said, "Well, all right, you can tell him who it's for," and the reason was Chris had to accompany the guitar because it was not his. He wanted to protect it from what turned out to be Bob's fingernails, and. There's a punchline a little bit later. So Chris worked his way into the sessions as a bodyguard for a consignment guitar. It's kind of known as the Joan Baez model. It's a small-bodied guitar that was perfect for mics in recording studios. So that's the tale of that. And he said, we'll be at Sound 80, you and Chris, and the guitar tomorrow night, December 27, 5 o'clock sharp. And so it was.
You know, Kevin, Kevin,
Yeah.
can I jump in here? Because I really want to do a deep dive because we've got this great gig coming up, the 50th anniversary of Blood on the Tracks down in Tulsa. And I would like to do a little deeper dive with you, Greg, Billy, and hopefully Bill Berg in the next couple of weeks before we go down. So I want to hold that story right there. if you can be with us next week, because I want to play a little bit of Kevin Odegaard's music right now. But that was a great teaser for next week. Let's play. What do we got queued up there, Chris Allen?
You tell me what you want to hear. I got all three of them.
I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
All right, here's I Don't Want to Go by the KO Band. Listen to see who played on that afterwards.
I don't want to go, but I got to. I have to find my way back home. I don't want to leave, but I need to. Spend a little time alone. Looking for a reason, any kind of reason to stay. 'Cause I'm drifting away. Yeah, I'm drifting away. Guess it's time to be dividing up the property. Just can't see. Tell me it ain't me. 'Cause I don't want to go, but I got to. Got to find my way back home. I don't want to leave, but I need to. Spend a little time alone. I don't want to go, but I got to. Got to find my way back home. I don't want to leave, but I need to. Spend a little time alone. Hey, I'm looking for a place, another pretty.
All right, that was Kevin Odegaard, the KO Band. Kevin, when was that recorded?
In Creation Studios.
And what year?
75.
Okay.
I was popular for about 20 minutes after the whole Blood on the Tracks thing happened by accident. So it wasn't hard to finagle a contract. And David Rivkin was working at this record company, and he signed me up. Bobby came in and played drums. It was a who's who of Minneapolis musicians at that point. Dan Lund, Russ Paul, everybody was on that thing. And on this record, it's Bobby Rivkin, Bobby Z, Jeff Dayton. That's Bruce McCabe on the piano.
Wow.
He played 1.5 gigs with the KO Band at Williams Pub. And so he was a temporary member of the band for a little less than a week.
Wow.
And that's how bands go. You're in Stars yourself.
Yeah.
You had your own band, so you know how things go.
Oh, yeah.
We thought it was a good song, and it was going to go far. But before the session was over, I don't remember whose fist it was, but somebody's fist went through the studio door.
Wow.
In kind of a quest for control over the production, the post-production, the mixing process, let's say.
Oh, there's more stories here with Kevin Odegaard. Kevin, let's make sure people know that the drummer, Bobby Rivkin, turned into Bobby Z and spent many years with Prince's band, The Revolution, one of the original founding members of that band.
And between, he went with Barry Goldberg and the Highway 52 band.
Oh, yeah.
We shouldn't ignore that because that was Bobby loved Barry, and Barry has recently passed. And
are you kidding me?
No, we want to send our regards out to his survivors, Joni and everybody else, and all of his friends, Arnie Fogel and everybody in St. Louis Park.
Oh man,
that was a big part. And I would come in and we do that song with Barry Goldberg and the Highway 52 band, and we were all kind of a community. We had a group of people that hung out, and we had a lot of fun. So Bobby did go to Prince, would show up at Williams Pub when we played, and he was just this kid who sat by a support post about 20 feet back from the stage, and he was scouting Bobby as early as 76. late 75. It didn't take long for Bobby to get invited to Moon Sound to be jamming with Prince. And one thing led to another, and pretty soon he was the biggest rock drummer on the planet.
Wow. Well, first of all, I want to say I didn't know Barry Goldberg passed. I'd known Barry for years, and of course, he wrote when he was 16 years old. Wrote 20 years ago in Speedy's Kitchen, which is one of the most classic rock and roll songs that I think was recorded by T.C. Atlantic. So we're going to have to do a Barry Goldberg tribute here. On a lighter note,
again, one of the great Minneapolis records. There were a lot of them. Some of them didn't make it out of the 5 states, but that song, Little Picture Playhouse, remember that? The Stillwater?
Yeah.
They were all great songs, and there were a lot of them. And the Heilecker brothers and everybody at Dove and Peter Steinberg, I believe his name was, were all involved in producing these things. Dale Menton and his gestures. Dale was a mentor to Barry. So I could go on, but it's time for another question.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that I heard it from another brother about his passing. May he rest in peace. Well, let's because we both spent some time at Williams Pub. There's 3 guys when I started playing Williams with Cats on the Stars in 1980. There was 3 guys that Bill Warner would book at both his club, the Artist Quarter, and Williams Pub, and that was Dave Ray, Eddie Berger, and Paul Metsa. Tell us a little bit about the late great Bill Warner. You've got at least one good Warner story. He was the classic club owner.
I have a question for you, and this will tell the whole story right now. Are you ready?
Yep.
Did he ever tell you were the house band?
No.
He told us we were the house band at Williams Pub. You're the house band. You're the official house band.
Well, there you go.
Little did we know there were 51 other house bands. So I think that's the best Bill Warner story I could possibly tell.
Well, there's a couple of quick ones. Bill Warner had just bought a brand new pickup truck. Dave Ray was moving. Back when Dave was drinking a little bit, he did spend a very sober last part of his life. I loved him either way, but he borrowed Bill's truck, came back a couple hours later and said, Bill, I got good news and bad news. The good news, I got everything moved. The bad news is I totaled your new truck. But the last time I saw Bill Warner was he had bought Rossi's Blue Star Room, which is now where Hell's Kitchen is in downtown Minneapolis, about 15 years ago. And, you know, Bill used to walk around. He always had those sunglasses on. He was always scribbling ideas down on barroom napkins. And the place was packed to the gills with Cassandra Wilson. I mean, and I said, Bill, how many? I said, what's the fire capacity here? He goes, about 160. I said, how many people you think are there? He goes, about 275.
He was a very bright guy. You could almost call him a genius with numbers.
Oh, God. Kevin, we've got more to talk about. Can we book you for next week and talk a little bit more about Blood on the Tracks?
If you book some of the other guys, yes. I don't want to be all alone on,
Well, no, we've got Rick Shevchik, who, speaking of 60s Minnesota rock and roll, wrote a great book called Everybody's Heard About the Bird. I've been talking to Greg. Oh, we will get other gentlemen. I'd like to get all...
Get Greg on, and I'm in.
Okay, that's a deal. Kevin Odegaard, you have a great day. Say hi to your lovely wife, Sue, and best luck when you go back to the casino. And thanks for sharing some time on this Saturday morning with us.
Well, thank you, Paul. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, buddy. You too.
I woke up this morning, lost in space, bad moon rising, egg on my face, a voice inside my head was steady. It was Curtis Mayfield singing, "People Get Ready." Just want to thank you for all the things that you've done. I'm thinking about you. Just wanna send my love. I send my best to you. This is my message of love. For all the things you did, I can never thank you enough. I feel like I'm falling off the face of the earth. Falling off.
I'm Lucas, and I had Z-LASIK at Weiss Eye Center. Went great. Little to no pain yesterday. Surgery went great. Everything else. Went home, took a nap, woke up, and haven't really had any pain since. Everybody was super nice and talked you through every step of the way, and I barely had to ask any questions because they knew what to say. They filled it all in. For me, it'll just be snowmobiling's my big one. I try to do a lot of riding in the winter. I farm in the summer, so this year was a big difference where a couple of times I had to borrow somebody's helmet, so I put my glasses on and ride because just the weather conditions, everything else, out there riding blind. So I'm really excited for that. It's well worth the money, and it's going to change my life for a long time, I'll tell you that.
Weiss Eye Center is the only clinic to offer blade-free Z-LASIK in the Northland. To find out more and to arrange your free consultation, call 218-625-1917 today or visit weisseyecenter.com for more information. Weiss Eye Center. See the best.
Every day deserves a superior beer. Earth Rider Brewery's decorated brewers hand-select hops that lend citrus notes to the crisp and easy-drinking Superior Pale Ale. Visit Earth Rider Brewery's Cedar Lounge Tap Room on the Working Harbor in Superior for their award-winning flagship and seasonal brews on tap and to go. To find out much more about Earth Rider Brewery events, join the mailing list and locate Earth Rider Beer near you at earthrider.beer. Hold fast.
River City Records and Books, voted best record store of 2023 in the Twin Ports by the Duluth Reader, has in stock thousands of new and used vinyl records, from classic rock to punk, grunge, and metal, to hip-hop, rap, and jazz, reggae, and dub. Thousands of books, CDs, DVDs, Blu-ray, and VHS. Also a large selection of cassettes, comic books, and music magazines. Stop in and see them at 1814 West Superior Street in the friendly Lincoln Park Craft District. Open 9 to 7, 7 days a week.
If you're looking for a great hang in downtown Duluth, I highly suggest Carmody's Irish Pub. They're located at 308 East Superior Street, open Tuesday through Sunday. The host and hostess are Eddie and Liz. Eddie is a retired Chicago cop. If he happens to be in the club when you're there, talk to him. He's got more stories than I do. They've also got a great jam session every Tuesday night from 8 to 11 with Bruce Woodman. So if you're a musician, tried and true, that has been out there playing and just want to go try out some new stuff, go down and hang out with Bruce and the crew. Or if you're just up and coming, bring your horn or your stringed instrument or just want to sing. Go sit in with Bruce Woodman every Tuesday night at Carmody's Pub, 308 East Superior Street.
Hey, it's Curly from the Salty Dogs, and you're listening to Stars Over the Prairie with Paul Metsa.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down the big lake they call Gitchagumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. With a load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty. That good ship and true was a bone to be chewed when the gales of November came early. The ship was the pride of the American side, coming back from some mill in Wisconsin. As the big freighters go, it was bigger than most, with a crew and good captain well seasoned, concluding some terms with a couple of steel firms when they left fully loaded for Cleveland. Then later that night when the ship ships still ring? Could it be the north wind they've been feeling?
Welcome back to Stars Over the Prairie. This is your host, Paul Metsa. That, of course, was the great Gordon Lightfoot doing the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which will be celebrating the 50th anniversary, not celebrating, commemorating the 50th anniversary of that tragic event, which happened November 10th, 1975. I was living up on the Iron Range when it happened. I remember it like it was yesterday. But we have two folks in here today to talk about the events going around to commemorate the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And I know her first name is Jenny. We just met in the lobby. Why don't you both introduce yourselves?
Well, thank you, Paul. My name is Jenny Van Sickle, and I represent that line in there where Gordon Lightfoot says some mill in Wisconsin, out in the Eloise area in Superior. And I am a part of a small group in Superior called Friends of the Fitz, and we are helping just to raise more awareness and raise some money, and we can talk more about that in a minute.
Great. And who's the handsome man you have with you?
Thank you for saying so. I'm Garner Moffitt, and I'm on the Douglas County Historical Society Board, serving as our current president, and we're helping out as the fiscal sponsor for this project, and we're also kind of hoping we can help bring together some bigger collaborations for more parts to commemorate this.
How is the, I know a little bit, I love Superior. What's happening with that Carnegie Library over there?
Nothing is happening with the Carnegie Library right now. The city currently owns it, and I think we're looking for partners to help restore the building.
Don't tear it down.
No, it won't be torn down.
It's haunted. I've been through it. I have proof.
The city invested in a brand new roof for the facility to stabilize it for now and things, and so we're just kind of looking at all of the potential uses for reuse in the future. So we're committed to preserving it.
How long have you been with the Douglas County Historical Society?
Just a couple years, so I'm only been in Superior, about 8 years now or so. So I'm fairly new to that community. But
where are you from?
St. Cloud, Minnesota, and I came to love the old homes there near the university and became interested in historic preservation. Moved up here, lived in Duluth for a little while, and then moved over to Superior. And I've been really excited to get to know the history of that community. The history is, kind of what makes each community special and unique, and adds some flavor to our lives.
You must be familiar with my friend and occasional guest. Love the guy Tony Jerkins from the Zenith City Press.
Yeah, absolutely. He served on our board for a little while before I was on there, but I got a chance to work with him on some stuff when I lived over here in Duluth, and he's done some great work for Duluth and
now,
the history movement here.
When you say St. Cloud, you're talking to a guy that used to rock with his band at the red carpet.
Oh, yeah. I used to hang out at the red carpet occasionally.
All right, let's get back to the Fitz here.
Yeah, let's get back to Jenny.
I'm interested. I moved down to Baton Rouge, and when I got on the air and I announced that I was from Duluth, Minnesota, I got flooded with phone calls. Do you know about the Edmund Fitzgerald? Were you there when it happened? Have you seen anything from the ship? Do they have anything from the wreckage? Are you guys... I know that there's some of that stuff here. Are you going to try and bring more back to this area, or is it's a moot point as far as keeping it in Michigan?
It's really important to recognize all of the places that the Edmund Fitzgerald, that mission, and that crew touched. Mm-hmm. And Superior is, of course, the place from which that iron ore was loaded up and made her final fateful voyage, right, from Superior. So we have seen different ways that communities commemorate their connection. And, Superior is recognizing, of course, Gordon Lightfoot came to Superior, had a concert on Connors Point. The mayor, Herb Bergson, during his service, made him a citizen through proclamation. So there have been ways that we have recognized that. However, we can do better. And, of course, with 50 years now passing since that fateful voyage, we are working to officially stake that claim with a historical marker with the state.
I've got to talk to the mayor. One of the biggest honors of my life, I opened that show for Gordon Lightfoot.
Get out of here.
It's all a small world.
It
That's
was
incredible.
a phenomenal. I mean, Gordon Lightfoot was my Bob Dylan before Bob Dylan, and still to this day. But yeah, it was.
And then I think in the 90s came back to perform at the Deck.
Oh, he's been back many
Okay.
times. Yeah,
to Duluth, but he
once
never, that's the first time he ever performed in Superior.
Did you know that Dave Strandberg of this radio station, KDAL, he was the very first person in the nation to play that song?
Wow.
Right.
Is Dave still with us?
Yeah, Dave does the morning shows Monday through Friday on KDAL.
I guess I should listen to the station.
He's 157, I think. So.
Right. And that song, points out north of Duluth, but we are some mill in Wisconsin, and of course that was Superior.
I would love to get personal. I'd love to get dual citizenship in Duluth and Superior. Let's work on that. But let's talk about what are you planning to do for the event? I mean, I think it's phenomenal. And are you in touch with a lot of family members who had sailors on that ship?
I think what's been so incredible, and Garner mentioned just discovering and talking about every community's history. So while it was 50 years ago, there are many people that have approached the Friends of the Fitz to tell their story and what they remember about that day. My neighbor, Sally Johnson, talked about her dad being a part of the crew that loaded the ship up that night. In various stories, there have been people from all over the state of Wisconsin that have reached out to talk about their connection, because that mission's important, that crew, their memory is really important, and I think there's just something about the mystery of the Edmund Fitzgerald that keeps people intrigued all these years later.
My idea would have been we had Erin Callahan, who is she's a great fiddle player with the Smoky Gold Band, and Danny Frank, the Smoky Gold, and I was talking to her about another project, but what comes to mind, and I like to just put this out there, I think it would be great to get members of the Duluth Symphony Orchestra, members of Superior Orchestra and Choir, and do a performance, orchestral performance of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm. We've officially proclaimed 2025 as the Year of Fitz. Year of the Fitz the other night at the Cedar Lounge, and Charlie Parr. I'm hoping we can make that happen. He is at Earth Rider the next 3 Wednesdays, so we'll see what we can do. And that's also a place that they're hosting a donation box and then hosting a roundup for those funds as well for the historical marker.
Great. And Charlie is on the road all the time, so see him when he's in town. Wednesday nights at the Cedar Lounge, old buddy of mine, one of my favorite modern folk singers. So what do you plan on having anything to mark the actual 50th anniversary, November 10, 2025?
Yes, we're working on a lot of different ways to do that, but of course that is the day we would like to make sure that marker is installed, and hoping that we can get the Meteor involved with some sounding of her horn as well, and just finding more ways to bring that to life, not only this year but every year, to have some space to remember that ship's voyage from Superior.
I would also approach the Arthur M. Anderson. As you know, that was the ship that searched for the Fitz. Believe it or not, every year it comes in November 9th and leaves November 10th. Ever since that fateful day, it has done that every single year.
Really? I didn't know that.
Somebody told me that, I don't know, about 8 years ago, and so I started watching the ship stuff in the newspaper and online, and sure enough, Arthur M. Anderson, November 9th comes in, leaves November 10th.
Wow, and they do a great thing at Split Rock Lighthouse every year, too.
Exactly.
Yeah, but we need to get maybe some of Wisconsin Point or something like that involved in doing something to commemorate the Superior side.
Yeah, exactly. And then this summer, my youngest daughter, Haven, and I got to visit the memorial out at Whitefish Point in Michigan. It's really beautiful, and I think we can also do something like that.
This is just phenomenal. Do you have a website where people can contribute and learn more about the events going on in this coming year?
We, thanks to Douglas County Historical Society for hosting those mechanisms to donate and more information. We are trying to collect some of the pictures and some of the articles that we've been working on just on our Facebook page. And the work has been deeply, incredibly an honor. There was a gal, Mackenzie Williams, who tragically lost her life, just graduated from UWS, and wrote a children's book to talk to kids about the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Wow.
So working with that family and trying to bring awareness to their work to try to see that manuscript published as well.
And so give us the website for the Douglas County Historical Society, and give the address and when you're open, because it's a really fun afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. The museum's located at 1101 John Avenue, and we're open every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 10 to 6, and then again on Saturdays from 10 until 2. And we can, of course, do extended hours if people want a special time if those don't work out. Our website is just douglashistory.org. And if you want a shortcut right to the Edmund Fitz page, you can do douglashistory.org/Edmund Fitz, and that will get you right to the Edmund Fitzgerald portion of the page.
And what's the name of the Facebook page for the Fitz?
That's Friends of the Fitz on Facebook.
Friends of the Fitz. Well, thank you so much. Let's stay in touch. There's more to talk about.
Yeah, I have an old CD-ROM that came out. I don't know if you remember this a long time ago, where it has the story of the Fitz, and I think you could dive on the Fitz. Obviously, it's not real pictures, but you can kind of see how it sank and everything like that. It came out like Windows 98. That's how long ago it came out.
Wow. I don't.
But I have an old CD-ROM, so maybe I'll copy it off for you so you can.
Yeah.
Because they don't even make it anymore.
No.
Well, we've got Rick Shevchuk coming up to end the show on Stars of the Prairie. Let's hear a little bit more of Gordon singing the Rick.
I knew you'd say that. I don't have it ready.
See how you work.
I know.
Well, I think if I could just add one
go ahead.
bit. If there's any way that the community, however you celebrate and work in the community, we would love to see you incorporate the Year of the Fitz into that event, into that theme. That would just be really awesome.
Well, we here at Stars of the Prairie are going to do whatever we can to make this, turn this into a very meaningful remembrance. Like I said, we've got to get Denny Anderson involved, because that's how I heard about it on the 6 o'clock news.
And contact Dave Strandberg here at KDAL, because he was the first one in the nation to play it. And in fact, Gordon Lightfoot gave him some kind of an award because of that. And they actually, I think, when he spun it, there was a single version and there was the album version. And Dave spun the album version, which is much, much, much longer. They cut out a whole bunch of the lyrics just for the 45 version. And Dave chose to play the long version every time we played it on. It was on WAKX at the time, which is now Cat Country, is 98.9.
And see if you could talk to the mayor. I'd like to get dual citizenship in both Duluth Superior.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Stay warm.
Thank you so much for having us.
Supper time came, the old cook came on deck saying, fellas, it's too rough to feed you. At 7 p.m. a main hatchway caved in. He said, fellas, it's been good to know you. The captain wired in, he had water coming in, and the good ship and crew was in peril. Later that night, when his lights went out of sight, came the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours? The searchers all say they'd have made Whitefish Bay if they'd put 15 more miles behind her. They might have split up or they might have capsized. They may have broke deep and took water. And all that remains is the faces and the names faces of the wives and the sons and the daughters.
All right, 50 years of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. They're starting to commemorate it in a loving way in 2025. Say we've got next week and the week after going to do more of a deep dive into the record Blood on the Tracks with several, hopefully all of the remaining musicians that are still with us, including Kevin Odegaard, who we just spoke with, Billy Peterson, Greg Inhofer, and Bill Berg. But on the phone now is a Duluth native who I co-wrote a book with called Blood in the Tracks, the Minnesota musicians behind Dylan's masterpiece. And I'm going to be joining him down in Tulsa, Oklahoma on January 23rd and 24th. On the 23rd, we're going to have a group discussion led by Stephen Jenkins, the executive director of the Bob Dylan Center, at the Woody Guthrie Center, with myself and my next guest, Rick, with Billy Peterson, Bill Berg, Greg Inhofer, and Kevin Odegaard. And then the next night, the big show with Laura Cantrell, Elvis Costello, Martin Courtney, Adam Granducci from War Against Drugs, myself, Paul Metsa, Diana Krall, and the band from Blood on the Tracks, and Lucinda Williams, and more. But we've got Rick on the line from sunny Arizona. Rick, how are you this morning?
Great, Paul. Thanks. Appreciate you dialing me up.
Well, we're going to get you back in because you are one of the few Dylan fans I know that hasn't seen the movie yet.
Yeah, that's actually on my schedule to do this week. But, in transition, we left Duluth right after Christmas. The drive took a few days, and we just got settled here in Scottsdale. So it's been hard to find the time to do it. But I can't wait to see the movie. Everything that I've heard about it sounds fantastic.
Say, we were just talking about the Edmund Fitzgerald. Were you in Duluth when the ship went down, or were you off to college by then?
No, I was out of college by then. I was in Duluth living with some friends, including living with Eric Escala. We had 4 guys in a house up on 5th Street in Duluth that we called Big Pink because it was painted pink. And I remember listening very intently to the news dispatches about, I remember clear as day how horrible the weather was that day. Yeah. And another of the 4 guys that we shared the house with, Mike Cohen, was working for, I believe, KDAL TV back then, and he was working on the story. So, yeah, it was very memorable.
Well, to lighten things up a little bit, talk a little bit about when you and I started our project. Geez, was it about 3 years ago? We started working on Blood in the Tracks, the Minnesota musicians behind Dylan's masterpiece, and it's gotten great reviews. Still selling out there. Get it at finer bookstores everywhere. Once I handed over my couple hundred pages of transcripts from the interviews I'd done, Rick, what did you find out about that record, Blood on the Tracks, that you didn't know before you started talking to all the musicians again?
Well, the thing that kind of sticks in my mind is that I don't believe that I had heard the New York acetate, the original running sequence of that original album where Dylan had recorded it all in New York, beginning with the band Deliverers and then having one musician after another drop out until it was basically him and the bass player. Listening to those recordings as we were putting the book together, I just found it remarkable that so many people have said it would have been a better album if they had just left it as it was with the New York recordings. It was all done in open E tuning on this guitar that Dylan found to be very essential to the writing process of the songs. and very little other instrumentation. Like I said, he just wasn't getting the vibe from the other musicians in New York, so it was very stripped down. Some people swear by that original running order of the album, but boy, I don't know. I listened to it, and I think they so badly needed the energy and the extra instrumentation that the Minnesota musicians brought to half of those songs that were re-recorded in Minneapolis. So that was my big takeaway.
And a little bit of the studio polish. That I mean, it was very. You and I have always agreed that we both love the New York sessions, but you and I are be true to your school. We're lifelong Minnesotans, so of course we enjoy what our fellow Minnesotans did. But there was a certain, and I think that's what David Zimmerman heard, Bob's brother, and the reason why he suggested that they go and recut some of those tracks was to get something that was a little more palatable for the radio.
Yeah, they were looking for a hit. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not sure if Bob actually thought that one of those 10 songs as originally recorded was going to be able to break out on the radio. But when his brother David heard it, he said, I don't hear a hit here.
Yeah.
You really need something more. It's not that he needed any other material because the songs were there. The songs are great. But, there was nothing there that was really radio ready.
Yeah, and there was a certain sameness to that, to the fact that it all was an open E, just in terms of the sonic sameness to it that was changed when the songs became, different keys in the Minneapolis sessions. Now, I read an interesting thing, Rick. You and I are, we were kind of the same era, of the same grew up listening to the same music, but I just saw a great quote by Bob Dylan, referencing Joni Mitchell's Blue, which came out in, I believe, 1972 or 1973. Probably one of the greatest singer-songwriter records of all time. One of my, I would say maybe one of my favorite Joni Mitchell records. But Dylan referenced listening to that record for a couple of years after it came out and said to someone, to no one in particular, he said, yeah, I was just really tangled up in Blue at the time. And of course with Dylan, you don't know exactly what he's talking about, but I thought, well, that has a certain, that means something too, that record affected, Joni's record affected Bob as much as it affected the rest of us.
I was just going to bring that up, actually, Paul, before you made the comment. The idea that he would record 10 really excellent songs in open E tuning was something that Joni Mitchell had been doing.
Right.
For several previous albums, and yeah, I was aware of Dylan saying that he was obsessed with that album Blue, and yeah, it's very possible that the title of the big hit from Bob's album Tangled Up in Blue was a direct reference to his appreciation for Joni's album Blue.
And if any guitar players out there that now it's so easy to learn guitar online. Back back in the day with the Edison piano roll, when Shevchuk and I were learning how to play guitar, you had to take the record, learn the lick, stop it, learn the note, stop the record, and then wear out 6 or 7 copies of whatever song you're learning off whatever record. But now I would highly suggest you can go to YouTube and search Joni Mitchell guitar tunings. It'll blow your mind at how many there are, number one. But she's such a phenomenal guitar player.
Oh, I remember spending several years just being fascinated, particularly with her open G. She uses a lot of variations of, but I ended up writing some songs in that tune and learning a lot of her music in that tuning, just because it sounded so different from standard tuning on guitar. But again, you can see how even Bob Dylan might have gotten a little carried away with that sound. It's really good to play in open tuning, but if you do 10 songs like that, it is going to start to sound a little bit the same.
Yeah. Well, I booked Sean Phillips years ago when I was booking Famous Dave's Barbecue and Blues in Minneapolis. And I did a little interview with him. I've got to dig it up. But according to him, He was playing in Canada, starting his career in the early 1960s, and he played in, was it not I think Calgary. He told me Calgary, wherever Joni Mitchell was living, and she was a waitress at the club. Back then, these gigs were 6 nights a week. And according to Sean Phillips, Sean gave Joni Mitchell some of her first guitar lessons. She was married to a guy named Chuck Mitchell at the time. I'm going to have to take Sean Phillips' word for it, Rick, and you don't have time on Stars Over the Prairie to refute that. But, hey, man, I'm looking forward to seeing you in Tulsa. Now, have you been to the Bob Dylan Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Yep. I was there just as it opened a couple of years ago. Steve Jenkins gave me a tour. We were on our way back from Arizona. I made an intentional side to
Well, I'll see you at the end of the month. Thanks for listening to Stars Over the Prairie. Next week, we'll have a deep dive into Blood on the Tracks. Thanks for listening. Remember to be kind, to make someone happy. No till Town Titans tomorrow. We're taking Sunday off.
I'm Heather Bosch.